Hey, it's Dorr with Tactical Hyve, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over kind of my go, no-go criteria as far as, my EDC items, depending on what I'm doing, where I'm going, and just what features are important and why. So stay tuned. And before we get into it, just wanted to thank today's sponsor, CCW Safe. In the event you're going to have to use any of this equipment for, self-defense, what have you, there often is and can very well be a pretty substantial second fight coming your way. CCW Safe has that down to a science. They will handpick your legal team, and if necessary, they'll send out an independent investigator to work on your behalf. So check them out in the description below. It might end up being one of the best decisions you ever made. All right, guys, so today's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm not just going to rattle off whatever make, models fit my fancy, whatever my preferences are. Frankly, as long as equipment works properly, and you know how to use it, you mesh those two things together, like so, it's pretty much gonna work for you. You're gonna be okay. So, but other than that, along the way, I've come up with some criteria, some things that I find work better for me, preferences I have. And in no particular, we have 5 topics. And the first one is gonna be deep stow, ultra concealed carry, whatever you wanna call it. And basically what that means is your traditional means to carry equipment, conceal equipment, namely your pistol, is gone. And that is your belt line. You don't have a functioning belt. You don't have a functioning belt line because for whatever reason, the time and place forces you not to be able to wear what you want to wear in regards to your everyday carry. So examples of that, PT gear, running, jogging, what have you. Also wearing dresses. I haven't got to wear dresses too many times in my life, but there was a time and place that I went and, not so much for us, but for the local populace, wearing dresses was quite popular, in particular man dresses or dish dashes as they were known. I got one here. I got this one overseas. I don't think I actually used this one, but this one was issued to me. And as you can see, it is a dress, a dish dash, something that you'd wear over in the Arabian Peninsula area. And concealing weapons and equipment while wearing one of these in very hot weather has challenges. So to overcome those challenges, we had to kind of look around the market and see what worked. And 2 items that I came across was the belly band holsters. These are popular with, again, people wearing PT gear, people going for runs, as well as over in this country, people that wear dresses, corporate events, cocktail dresses for going out, it doesn't matter. They don't necessarily have a belt. They're not wearing a jacket, so shoulder holsters are out. So these belly bands work. They vary a little bit by price point. They're form fitted. They have basically a cummerbund with a built-in holster, but the holsters aren't the best. So when you are selecting one, pay specific attention to that. And obviously knowing which firearm you're going to pair it up with, I highly recommend. So again, with the belly bands, they're not for everybody, but if you're trying to find that solution, depending on, having to wear a man dress, a lady dress, a they dress, whatever the hell kind of dress you want to wear, or PT gear. And there may be some other ones that I can't think of or remember, or maybe haven't even seen. But they work to a certain extent, and definitely worth a look. Up next is another kind of alternate means of carry. These are the low Viz Undershirts that have the under the armpit along the ribs. Again, just kind of fabric, cavity, pocket, whatever you want to call it. Holster built into them. Never been a fan of these. I never even actually used one, really. We got issued them way back in the day, and I might have tried it on, but was not a fan. Big point is, if you're wearing one of those, you really need to have an unbuttoned shirt or the ability to make an unbuttoned shirt very, very quickly. If you're wearing a pullover, like collared shirt or anything else, a man dress that doesn't have the buttons, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go down go down your shirt? Or are you gonna go try to hike it up and go underneath? It just doesn't make any sense. So I was never a fan of those. A lot of people do use them. You can check that out as well. But if you're going to lose the ability to wear a jacket or lose that functioning belt line, those could work. And in a pinch, I definitely can make it work. Up next, we have a controversial item based on the comments we got in that Dutch EDC video, and that is the clip draw. The clip draw you know, is basically just a knife clip that runs down the side of the gun. This is not a gun, it's just a slide. It's very important that you know that, Overlord. It's not a holster. It's not going to give you the same level of retention or protection as a holster, so you need to definitely think through that. Ask questions if you don't have an answer. But a lot of people use these and they're not having any issues. You know, there's plenty of guns going off in holsters all over YouTube as it is. So what do we got to lose? But, you know, that's, you know, all joking aside. If, you know, you pair this thing up properly with what it needs to keep the weapon from accidentally discharging, etc., you'll be okay. I've used these in both personal and professional use. I know a lot of people that have used them, definitely in professional use. And when applied properly and thought through, they work just fine. And, you know, they can, this is a old 19 slide, but putting these on like something smaller, like a 43, 43X, you can definitely make the Z-gun disappear. And in that hot weather, that low, you know, barely wearing any clothing, you know, whatever it is, these things do work. So it's a deep stow item, not something that I would use all the time. I don't really use them at all anymore, but they do work. And I've never had an issue, nor have I ever seen anybody have an issue in the years that these were used. All right, next item up is another thing that I am not a big fan of, and that is ankle holsters. Ankle holsters do work, though printing is very easy. So that's something you need to watch out for. And, you know, the people that you are trying to fool, their ability to detect is something you are trying to defeat. They're looking for ankle holsters. They know what the print looks like. They understand because they have used them as well. So if you're with the untrained and you're not really that worried about people summing you up and looking at you, you know, you might be able to get away with a little bit more, but they're just not something I've ever really been a fan of, especially when not wearing, you know, like a cowboy boot or something that can truly conceal and, you know, and help with that printing. And then you are very limited with how big of a gun you can carry, you know. And I'm down definitely in the subcompact region. You know, Dutch is up there somewhere with the Desert Eagle. You know, so teach their own body type will play a part in that. So, but again, it's an option. It's not one that I'm fond of. All right, guys, so that's my spiel on deep stow. Just what works for me, what doesn't work for me. But again, you know, it's just preference. You got to figure out what works for you. Up next will be knives. You know, I do carry knives. You know, they're really more of a tool. I like to have that special knife that's nice and fresh for in case I need to cut apples or I got to fight my way through the branches to get to the apples before I can cut them. But then, and then there's also just kind of the daily, you know, ones that I use for the utility purposes. When selecting a knife, you know, I go with the side folders. You know, some of them are varying degrees of assisted, some aren't. And I do change my knives out. I do have them, I do sharpen them. I have had them taken apart, parts replaced on them. Back at SHOT Show, you used to be able to dump off a bag of knives first thing in the morning on the first day to get them all bagged nice and new. They don't do that anymore. But the knife clip, very important. I like the side folders because they're reliable, they're fast enough, they're easy enough. And then the knife clip for me is very important. You know, knife clip, like the clip draw on the pistol slide, it keeps the item in the same spot no matter what. It's consistently in the same spot. It's consistently positioned in the same spot, the right way, the proper way, the same way. So when you go and grab for it, it's always exactly the same. Similar to what your holster or your mag pouches on your belt provide you. Provide you that consistency and that reliability. So with the knife, that's something that I also consider very important. Price points vary, just like in anything else. You can go with the cheaper knives. I've purchased too many to count, you know, just the standard in the aisle, on the shelf knives on base. They're a little less worried about things getting ripped off. You probably aren't going to find knives in an aisle anymore. But, you know, some of those sub $100 brands, you know, they keep an edge. They're good enough. But one thing I've noticed is the clips break off. The clips have broken off on both of these. So it's important to keep an eye on the clips. A lot of those cheaper brands, that's the first thing that's going to go on them. So as soon as they start to feel like they're getting a little less rigid, less, you know, losing some of that strength, just put it out to pasture, throw it in a drawer with all your other old knives, use it for whatever else, and then just get another one. If you start bumping up in the price points, they will last longer, but I mean, if you're carrying this thing every day, all the time, eventually, you know, it'll come in and out of your pocket enough times to where it will start to lighten up. You can mess with them a little bit with pliers and things like that, but honestly, for an EDC knife and for that application, I would just get another one, or If you can find a make model where you can replace the knife clip, go ahead and do so. I'm not a big fan of fixed blades for EDC. It's just more of a pain than it's worth. You know, if you're going into a higher level of threat or whatever, you can always carry more. You can always switch to fixed blade. You can always switch to a bigger gun, etc., etc. For full kit, full regalia, whatever you want to call it, professional stuff, of course I have a fixed blade. But for EDC, it's just not so much. I mean, yeah, this is a big old knife, but whatever. If I need it, if I need one, it's probably not going to be concealed. So I stick with the folded stuff. But again, that's just me. There's plenty of smaller, purpose-built fixed blades out there that work for people. I've just never really been a fan of it. This is an example of that, a very small fixed blade. I didn't really use this one so much in my personal life, but I did use it at my last job, and the clip broke off. So, you know, again, we already covered that. The stiletto, automatic, fancy, cool knives, you know, those are great conversation starters. You know, they could be used to end a conversation if you needed to, but I find them to be unreliable. For whatever reason, sometimes they just don't fire. I've never really carried them much. I did have them at my last job. That was kind of more of a pocket knife that I would use when I have all my work stuff on, but I didn't even use them that much, and I still had instances where they just didn't work. And when that happens, you can usually use inertia to get the blade out and have it stick. But in a struggle, are you going to have the luxury of being able to do that when you're like, you know, about to die or whatever? Maybe, maybe not, but it is an assumption, and assumptions get people killed. So for that reason, I'm not a real big fan of them. I know a lot of people are, but again, I'd rather have a plain Jane piece of equipment that I 100% know is going to work than the greatest of all time piece of equipment in that bracket that may or may not work. And that's just me. All right, guys, up next we have lights. You know, there's a lot of different lights out there. I grabbed a few just for examples, but big thing on lights, you know, for EDC, I don't want it to be very big. I would consider this kind of an average size utility work light. It's plenty bright. It has a lanyard system I can get my fingers in like so, but unless I had a purpose, carry a light this big, I was going to be out at night, whatever, I probably wouldn't go with something this big. Though it's got plenty of lumens, it has a hand attachment point that I like. I just made this one with 550. You can make them with, you know, pieces of inner tube, things like that I've done in the past. But most importantly, it's got the rear cap plunger. The rear cap plunger is very important. It needs to work properly. And I just like being able to quick flash, like camera flash my way, white light my way through, you know, whatever you want to call it, tactical or dangerous situations. White lights attract bullets, and they're also an extremely effective beacon to broadcast your exact position in any given moment. So for that reason, I love having that cap. This is, you know, closer to the size I would carry. For a light, it does have the plunger feature, but it's not as purpose-built or robust as, you know, your actual button. This one you can just unscrew a ways, and it does work in that plunger fashion. This one's actually red lens. I wouldn't recommend using a red lens for EDC, just, you know, you want to be able to see what you need to see, and, you know, blinding people momentarily also helps. I had to flip the knife clip or whatever, the retention clip backwards on this one. It was kind of in the wrong direction. I always like to have my caps facing down, or my plunger actuator facing up and the lens facing down. That's just my personal preference. Also, you know, there's the pen lights. You can run these in your pockets. They're not designed for that so much. They're more designed for, you know, pockets. A lot of shirts have those little pen alcoves or stitched in holes, and that's what this is designed for. This would be more of a secondary, tertiary light system that you would just have on you. This is a Scribe made by Asp. I did a review on this online not too long ago, and it works for all intents and purposes. You know, I don't have any complaints with it, but you know, just another example. I don't always have a flashlight on me, but I tend to, especially if I know I'm going to be out after dark. Now, as far as EDC Medgear goes, I don't generally carry that too much. I do have it in my vehicle. I do have it in my equipment. If I have a backpack, I'm definitely going to have it in there. But you know, it's hot almost always where I am, and just having excess stuff I don't always have. But that being said, I do have a planned EDC Medgear, and generally I'm going to go with a tourniquet. This tourniquet, you know, I've had it for a long time, but I've never used it. So it's just kind of been sitting in pockets, sitting in drawers, sitting in pouches for quite a while. Still got rubber bands on them. And, you know, you check it out every once in a while, make sure it's serviceable, but this thing is good to go. You know, it's a little bit dirty, that's okay, but it works. And you got to make sure this stuff works just like anything else. And then also a combat gauze or something close to it. I just grabbed this one out of a drawer. This one's pretty old. This one's probably dried out and not going to do what it's intended to do. So, but this is just an old one I pulled out for the video. That being said, even dried out, these things are still gauzes. They are still gonna have some of that residue, but for EDC, I would want to definitely have a fresh one. But other than that, guys, you know, on body, the only time I have like a full blowout kit or multiple tourniquets would be closer to full gear or something, you know, along those lines. But, you know, teach their own. You want to carry a med bag around with you everywhere you go. I like your attitude. You're a fine American. And, you know, you make the world a better place. Up next, we've got less than lethal items. All right, a few examples of less than lethal items. We have the pen, the tactical pen, it's just a pen, right? It's just a pen. No, what are you talking about? What? This is just a pen. Everybody knows what these are. Everybody knows what these look like. So if you are going to conceal one of these, it needs to be truly concealed, having it sticking out, letting everybody know with a telltale glass breaker. It's not going to happen. For the same reasons I spoke to on the ankle holster, spotting the print on those is fairly easy if you know what to look for, and most importantly, you are looking for it. Same thing goes with these. Anybody sees it sticking out of your pocket, shirt pocket, pants pocket, whatever, that's going to raise suspicion. So I'm not against carrying these. They do function, but I just don't think they're as concealable as one may think, because the opposition knows what to look for, in my opinion. I definitely know what to look for, so I can only assume the other guy does too, or gal, or they, or whatever. So I don't carry this thing. It's heavy, it's bulky, and there's just other things I can use if we get to that level. And as far as I'm concerned, armed conflict is armed conflict. You try to hit me with your phone, we're there. So you better, I hope you want it. So that's my spiel on attack pens. They do work. Some say you can get these through airport security. I don't know. I mean, which airport you're at and who's on shift that day is going to play a pretty massive role in whether or not that works. I'm not going to try it. I'm not that worried about it. But, you know, it's a piece of kit that I have and I can use if need be. Up next is Mace, pepper spray, OC spray, whatever you want to call it. I do have some of these. I don't carry them. I have them around. But again, armed conflict is armed conflict. You know, you should be able to use your words. You should be able to be an adult about things. You should be able to not be forced into violence in the first place. So, you know, I just don't see this as something that I'm going to go to personally. But I do have them, and I have used them. I've been pepper sprayed and maced a few times in training and training adjacent. We'll call it good times. Not so much for me, but you know, for my my older guys that got a kick out of it. In fact, one time, they took me and all the new guys out to this training village. I'm like, all right, guys, you need to go into that building and you need to come back out with all the spray painted rocks. And we're like, what? They're like, just do it. So we ran into the building, and they had completely sprayed the building back to front with pepper spray, mace, what have you. So we're in there coughing, and it's getting harder to see. And in one of the very back rooms were a bunch of like basketball-sized rocks. I mean, these sick, twisted freaks went and found like these massive, these things had to have weighed like over 50 pounds, easily heavier than a 45, 50 pound plate. They brought them in there and then they spray painted them. That's how bad they wanted this. So we go in, we find them, they're all clumped together in the back room, we pick them up, we bring them out, you can't breathe, can't see. That was my first time ever getting maced or pepper sprayed. I look back on it with joy, more so than when it happened. And then not long after that, I actually got pepper sprayed by, again, one of those guys. But he's a great dude, you know. He's a family man now, retired like me. And I'm better off for it because I have experience of being maced. And it's important that I do because I more than deserve it, because I actually have maced somebody. And that somebody was my little brother, Grant. I got a hold of my mom's car keys when I was about 5 years old. And she worked at the hospital in Tacoma, downtown-ish, and you know, not the greatest place, so she had Mace art keys. I didn't know what Mace was, so I decided to investigate. And I did, sitting on the steps of a friend of the family's house, and she was sitting there talking with them. My little brother was about 10 feet away, but he was at exactly the wrong angle. And when I was sitting there messing with this thing on my mom's keys, it shot across the room. Wasn't a direct hit, thank God, because he was only about 2 years old. But some of the spray kind of varied off and got on his clothes. He was crying and, you know, not having a good time. So that's how I learned what mace was. Left kind of a bad taste in his mouth, not so much mine, because, you know, fortunately I was just able to not shoot myself in the face with it. And yeah, that's how I learned what mace was story. So, you know, it works. It is what it is. I'm not saying don't carry it or don't have it. I have it. I just tend not to carry it. And then last but not least on the less than lethal, we have the old whistle. You know, some would call this a range whistle for self-defense purposes. Others would call it a different kind of whistle for different kind of situations. But, you know, just having the ability to draw attention to yourself. Flashlights do the same thing. Whistling, flashlights, if you want to just scare them off by making it very well known to everybody else what they're doing, this is an option. Unless you are completely incapable of defending yourself, I do not recommend this. But nonetheless, I've been known to carry them for whatever reason, and maybe that reason was to have someone come save me. I don't know. You be the judge. But it is an option, you know, signaling for help. Not necessarily, and it isn't necessarily for an attack. It could be something else, a medical emergency. You get lost out in the woods, you know, giving kids things like chem lights, flashlights, whistles, so that they can be found more easily. It's a good idea. So, you know, definitely not a plain clothes, not doing work stuff EDC item for me, but, you know, if it works for you, more power to you. All right, guys, so that's a quick conclusion, you know, based on five different categories, if that works. Deep stow options when your standard way of carry is not gonna work, you know, for whatever reason, be it certain types of clothing or where you have to go or whatever, you know, just having a plan for that. Knives, you know, it needs to be reliable, and it really, number one, obviously it needs to be sharp. I like to make sure it stays in the same place, even if I'm in a tussle or falling, slipping, whatever. Being able to, you know, cut your way out of any bad situation, no matter what it is, good idea. So having that knife serviceable and ready to go, swapping it out as needed. Lights, again, I'm a minimalist, guys. Less is more. The less I can get away with carrying, be it a weapon-mounted light or a handheld light, I'm gonna do it. But if I feel like I need more light, I'm gonna go ahead and bump it up to more light. The less than lethal stuff, you know, your hands are less than lethal. Your ability to speak intelligently, keep your composure, and de-escalate things before it gets to that point is really your best non-lethal weapon, if that makes sense. But, you know, there are options out there. And then medical gear. You know, have a plan for it. The more pockets you have, the better. And if you don't have enough pockets, off-body carry can be an option. I'm not a real big fan of off-body carry for pistols, but I have done it in the past, especially when it's super hot. But off-body carry for these types of items, maybe not the pocket knife, but, you know, definitely lights, extra mags, less than lethal gear that I may give to somebody else, or, you know, use if need be, if I felt like I was getting into a bad situation in a place that I didn't want to be. And then, of course, Medgear. Yeah, so off-body carry also an option, you know, just kind of my parting shot. Anyway, you know, thanks for being here. Like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Check out that back catalog. It is quite vast. And I'll see you next time. This is Dorr, out.